begin, so to help you reflect on what might be interesting for you. So you can always raise your hand, or Shireen, you can also help communicate what's said in the room. What type of information about multilateralism interests you the most? At this point in your careers, is it Security Council resolutions, General Assembly resolutions? Is it UN documents? Is it archival documents? Please feel free to share what's important to you. Anyone in the room? All of them. All of them. Okay. Well, the good news is we're going to look at them all today. If you have any questions, of course, please keep a hold of them, and we'll get to them after the session. On the next slide, we'll show you just a little bit to orient you where we're sitting as a library and archives. So, of course, there is the UN Secretariat, and this is the organogram. There's, of course, the 6 main organs of the UN. The Secretariat carries out the day-to-day work of the UN. And you can see in red there where we sit, the UN office at Geneva. Of course, for the UN as a whole, the Secretariat, we have New York as headquarters. The UN also has the 3 major offices outside of headquarters and 5 regional commissions. We sit at the UN office at Geneva. And the UN Library and Archives Geneva has been here since 1919. So as you can see on the next slide, we were part of the League of Nations, the Library of the League of Nations. Today, we are the UN Library and Archives Geneva. We have a range of resources, documents, books, journals, covering all aspects of the work of the UN since 1946. But we also house the archives of UN Geneva, the League of Nations, international peace movements, and more. So we're really in a fortunate place to be able to be a library and archives together to house this knowledge. I'm going to pass you on to our speakers who are going to take us through the session today. We have Hermine. She is the Chief of the Archives Management Unit, part of the Institutional Memory section. And also we have Christina, Chief of the Research Services Unit, Library Services section. Thank you, Hermine and Christina, for being here today, and I pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie, and thank you for this invitation. So what we are going to see in the session today, we are going to talk a little bit on the history of the Leagues of Nations and the United Nations. And after, we are going to define the primary sources, what are archives, official documents, and publications, before give information on the principal types of official documents. And then we will have 2 demonstrations, one of the UN Archive Geneva platform and one of the UN Digital Library. Let's start with the first part. And because today we will be discussing 2 multilateral institutions, the League of Nations and the United Nations, because their history are deeply interconnected. The League of Nations is often considered as a UN predecessor, as we used to say. And today, as it was mentioned, we have the privilege of managing documents and archives from both institutions, which reveal how there is a continuities between the 2 institutions. So let's see first the League of Nations, because this organization was established in Geneva just after the trauma of World War I, and with the mission of maintaining world peace. It's considered as the first international organization which has been dedicated to preserve peace and promote cooperation among states. And in that sense, we often say that the League marked a turning point in the institutionalization of multilateralism, because it really created a permanent multilateral framework where the representatives of member states were able to meet regularly and discuss major global issues. And they were able to do that on an equal footing, because the concept of one member state, one vote started with the League of Nations and is something that is, of course, continuing today with the UN. But sadly, despite the League's existence, it couldn't prevent World War II, and the League and the UN coexisted for a few months after the war until the League's dissolution in 1946. And it's at that time where the League's assets were transferred to the UN, which include the Palais des Nations, which is now in Geneva, but also the library collections and the archives.
So, hello, good morning. I'm happy to continue the history from Hermines. So we may say that, yes, the League of Nations was not able to prevent the Second World War. However, as you know, the idea of an international entity that would oversee international cooperation for peace and security was never abandoned. And during the Second World War, the leaders of the coalition that was leading efforts against the forces of the Axis put a lot of diplomatic efforts into creating a new organization that would carry on the work of the League. And as you know, this new, stronger organization is the United Nations, whose headquarters is no longer in Geneva, is in New York. And as you know, the United Nations has a founding document, the Charter, which was signed in San Francisco on the 26th of June 1945 and came into force on the 24th of October 1945. So this year we are celebrating 80 years of the UN Charter and of the existence of the organization. In 1945, the UN only had 51 original members. Egypt is one of them, is an original member, and now it has 193 member states. So it's the only organization that really fulfilled this call for universality. In the Article 1 of the Charter, the mandate of the organization is explained, and you have it here. It's quite vast in maintaining international peace and security, also solving international problems that can have economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character, and will promote respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all. So as you can see, it's a truly vast program that can only be achieved through multilateral action.
So what we see is that the experience of the League of Nations left the foundation of what is today the international system with the UN. And indeed, the UN has inherited many agencies that was initially created by the League. We can name OMS, you can link the UNESCO, for instance.
So the idea of the United Nations was also to try to overcome what was the perceived weakness of the League by trying to build a stronger collective security system. And the main goal of the organization was to avoid repeating a catastrophic event such as the Second World War.
But the League and the UN have common points. We can cite, for instance, the activities that was initially managed by the League, and they were also continued by the UN. We can see, for example, the publication of official documents, and we will see now how the structure of the organs of the League and the UN is quite similar.
Yes, indeed. When we examine the Covenant of the League of Nations and the Charter of the United Nations, we see these similar structures. The League of Nations had 4 main organs, and on the contrast, the UN has 6 main organs, and we're going to examine them one by one. So the first organ that we find in both organizations is the Assembly. So the Assembly is the organ where all member states are represented on equal footing, each holding 1 vote. And these bodies, these assemblies, meet annually in regular session, usually starting in September of 1 year, and their goal is to be able to discuss all global issues and promote dialogue. Then we see that both organizations had a council. So the council was the organ that is usually responsible for maintaining international peace and security. And in both, they had both permanent and non-permanent members. The UN Security Council, of course, comes to mind because it is a very prominent organ. You all know that it has 5 permanent members who hold the right of veto. It is also the organ that can make recommendations for peaceful resolutions of international disputes, but it can also resort to imposing sanctions or authorizing the use of force to restore international peace. And all UN member states have the obligations to comply with Security Council resolutions. Now we see another organ that both organizations had in common, which is the Secretariat. So the Secretariat is the organ that performs the day-to-day work and implements the decisions of the main organs. And this daily administrative work includes also preparing official documents, preparing agenda, publishing meeting records. So it's very relevant for the topic of today. Now we will see a few differences. For example, for the functional activities. So the League had an organization that was based on sections. The UN has a dedicated organ, the Economic and Social Council, whose goal is to coordinate activities, for example, among the various functional organizations or commissions that exist in the organization, and also to coordinate the activities of the 15 specialized agencies that form part of the UN system, which include UNESCO, ILO, FAO, etc. Then another organ that both organizations have is the establishment of a court of international court of justice. So the first international court was the permanent court of justice, and that had general jurisdiction. And its work is now continued by the International Court of Justice of the UN, which adjudicates disputes among nations and can give advisory opinions on international legal issues. And finally, we can see how certain activities were regulated in the two organizations. The League carried out numerous activities that were related to the implementation of the peace treaties after the First World War. So, for example, it had created a series of mandates to administer the former colonies of Germany and the Ottoman Empire. These mandates that were handled by the League of Nations were then transferred to the UN Trusteeship Council to make sure that these territories were administered in the best interest of their populations. But all trust territories have now attained independence, and therefore the Trusteeship Council has suspended its activities in 1994.
Thank you, Christina. And today, so we are going to focus on primary sources, which are the documents produced by the League of Nations and by the UN. Among the primary sources, you will find unpublished material, which are the archives, and published material, which are official documents and publications. And so, of course, each type of primary sources serves a specific purpose, and we will start by examining the archives. What are the archives? They are the documents produced or received by an organization, in our case, or it could be by an individual, during its daily activities. In the case of the League of Nations and the UN, these documents are often unique because they are unpublished documents like letters, draft reports, or memoranda that you will be only able to consult through the archives. The archives prove the evidence of activities of an organization which occurred in the past. They tell stories, they document people and the history of the organization. The archives have been selected for permanent preservation because of their value as a source of historical research. Let's see two examples of archives linked to Egypt. So the first one on the left is a letter dated March 1937. It was written by Wasif Boutros-Ghali, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt at that time. If I'm correct, he was the uncle of Boutros Boutros-Ghali, who was the Secretary General of the UN. And in this letter, in 1937, Wassif Boutros-Ghali requests the admission of the Kingdom of Egypt to the League of Nations. The letter is addressed to the Secretary General of the League at that time. It was the second Secretary General of the League, a French diplomat called Joseph Avenol. And you can see at the bottom of the letter the original signature of Wassif Boutros-Ghali. Finally, Egypt became the last country to join the League of Nations on 26 May 1937. And on the right, we have an example of archival document from the UN time. It's a letter from 1948, which contains the comments from the government of Egypt on the drafting of the International Covenants on Human Rights. And in this letter, the government of Egypt expressed the general agreement with the draft covenants, but it also provides observation and raises questions regarding the practical implementation of the covenants. So today, we will not go further into the typology of archives, but it was important to mention that kind of primary sources because you will find this kind of document when you will be on the UN Archives Geneva platform that we will show you later on. Now we will continue to focus on published documents from the League and the UN with Christina starting on official documents.
So now we're going to see a little bit the difference between the archival documents and the official documents. As Hermine said, archival documents are not published. Official documents are published by the organization because they serve as the basis for the work of the deliberative organs of the organization, for example, the UN or the League of Nations. So in the form of official documents, you will find all the materials that the organs need to learn about a certain situation and take a decision, recommend a course of action, approve a resolution. So in this form, you will have reports, you will have resolutions, of course, but also the meeting records where the questions are examined and decisions are taken. These official documents are prepared by the UN Secretariat, you remember this organ, and they are made available to delegates and participants in UN official meetings. So this means that these documents are not unique. They are printed and distributed in multiple copies. They are also made available to the delegates and to the general public for free. These documents also have some elements that are very prominent and will help you identify them as official documents. One important thing that you have to know is that each official document is identified by a unique document symbol that you will normally find at the top right of the document. And the symbol remains the same for all the language versions. Since these are official documents, they are also in principle published in all the official languages of the organization. At the time of the League of Nations, there were only two official languages, English and French. Today, in the United Nations, we have 6, Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish.
So let's see an example of League of Nations official documents. Here, this example is a document from 1939. And in this document, the governments of Egypt and Iraq request the election of judges to the Permanent Court of International Justice who would represent Islamic civilization. At that time, Egypt, Iraq, together with Turkey and Iran, wanted to draw the attention to Article 9 of the court statutes, which stipulate that the judge should represent collectively all the main forms of civilization and the principal legal systems of the world. So that's the purpose of this document. But it was just the example to show you the symbol that mentioned Christina on the top right. We will have also the title of the document in the middle and the date of the document below the symbol. And we can see also the mention on the top left that the document was distributed to the Assembly, to the Council, and the members of the League.
And now we see an example of a UN official document. So all UN official documents, they look the same. On the left, you will see the indication that this is a United Nations, the Council of the United Nations. You will see the emblem of the organization and then the name of the organ to which this document has been submitted to. In this case, it's the General Assembly. Then on the top right corner, you will see the famous symbol. So this is the unique identifier of this particular document. And you see it's made of a sequence of letters and numbers separated by slashes. Then, if we go further down, we see other elements. Normally, official documents, since they're official, they are issued in connection with the points of the agenda, the program of work of an organ during its session. And you see here on the left, we can see that this document was presented to the 75th session of the General Assembly, and particularly it belongs to the agenda item 34B, which is the point on the program of the organ for that session. And the title of that item, that point on the program, is the prevention of armed conflict, strengthening the role of mediation in the peaceful settlement of disputes, conflict prevention and resolution. And finally, we find the title. So it's a letter from the permanent representative of Egypt to the United Nations, addressed to the Secretary General. And it makes the statement of negotiations between Egypt and Ethiopia about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance there. Now, we will dive further in the topic of the official documents, trying to state what kind of types of official documents you can encounter in your work. And you will encounter meeting records, resolutions, reports, and letters. These are the most common types of official documents. We will start with the meeting records. Why meeting records are important? Because they contain all the statements and speeches that have taken place during a meeting of an organ. And so here you can learn how the issues have been discussed, what the different member states have said, if they have discussed, for example, draft resolutions, and which actions were taken. And you have to know that there are two types of meeting records. There are the verbatim records of meetings, also known by their French name, procès-verbaux. And these are those that contain the full first-person account of the proceedings of a meeting. So everything that has been said at the meeting has been recorded word by word. Normally, the main organs of the UN have verbatim records. So the main session of the General Assembly, the Security Council, they have verbatim records. But not all organs of the UN have verbatim records of their meetings. Other organs, for example, the Economic and Social Council, only have summary records, which means that what has been said during a meeting is presented in a condensed form, in a condensed version, written at the third person. This is because verbatim records are very costly from the point of view of time and resources involved, so they are reserved for the most important organs. Then another extremely important kind of official documents are the resolutions, because in resolutions you will find the formal expression of the will of the main organs as formed by the majority of their members. Resolution can be adopted with a vote or without a vote if there is consensus. Then another very common type of official documents are the reports that can be issued on a wide variety of topics. And of course, the most authoritative reports, for example, in the UN, are those of the Secretary General, those that the Secretary General presents to the General Assembly or to the Security Council. Another type of documents that you can encounter are the letters. So in the letters are a way for member states to formally inform UN organs about events or outcome of meetings that have happened outside the organization. So it's a way of official way of transmitting information to the main organs from the member states, and they can be done for a variety of purposes. Now we are going to see the third kind of official publications and documents. So these are the publications. So already the League of Nations issued publications. You can see here on the left, there is a statistical yearbook of the League. And on the right, you see very well-known UN publication, The Basic Facts About the United Nations. As you can see in these publications, there is no standard format. They can be issued like books, they can have colors, they are quite different in their presentations. And also their goal is different. And turn the page. Yes. So because their goal is to inform the public about the organization's activities and encourage objective analysis and discussion. So in this form, you will find major studies and reports. You will find yearbooks, statistical compilation, handbooks, and periodicals. Particularly relevant today are, of course, the UN official publications. They are available in both print and digital formats. Normally, the digital formats are available on the UN institutional websites of the various UN entities that issue this kind of publications.
Thank you, Christina, Hermine. So we went through the different types of documents we have in our library and archives, and we hope that the details were important, but the reason we also share these kind of the classifications is because to research and to access them online, these are important little details. So we have a little quiz to see how you're going with this. You'll see on the screen an example of one of the types of documents that we shared today, the different classifications. So can you tell us what type of primary source is this document? Is it a UN official document, an archival document, or a UN publication? Any ideas? And you can raise your hand and say if you know. Yeah, I see a hand, I think. UN official document? Is that what you said? Yeah? Hermine, yeah. Christina, is it correct?
Yes, it is. Because you see here on the left, the indication United Nations, the General Assembly, the emblem of the organization, the symbol, so all the elements that we have mentioned before. Yeah, okay. It's a UN official document.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So we've gone through these examples, but what we want to also share with you now is actually how to access them online. And there are two specific platforms that we'll look at today. Firstly, I'll pass to Hermine, who's going to share what's called the UN Archives Geneva platform. And this is where you can access the majority of archives that we have. So Hermine, I pass to you for the demo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. So indeed, we are going to see the UN UN Archive Geneva platform. It's where you will find the League of Nations official documents and publication in this platform. This platform is more general, it's for the archives, and you will be able to find the description and in specific cases, the full text of digital documents managed by UN Archive Geneva. On the blue box on the left, you can consult the 5 categories of archives preserved at the UN Library Archives Geneva today. But today we will focus only on the League of Nations archives category. And you have to know that all the League of Nations archives have been digitized after a 5-year project and are totally available on this platform. And it represents more than 14 million pages. So you will have quite a lot of documents to read if you are interested. Among the League of Nations archives, we have the collection of the official documents that you can find here, and it's around 120,000 documents. If you see how we structure the information here, you will see that the collection of official documents is organized in a 3-view structure by series. All these series of the official documents are arranged around 4 main topics. What I'm going to explain to you now can be found below in the scope and contents area, where you will find this information summarized here if you want to go back later on. But let's see how these official documents of the League were classified. So the first topic will be the institutional structure of the League of Nations. And here we will find the main bodies of the League of Nations, the Council, the Assembly, the Secretariat, but also the ancillary bodies, institutions connected with the League of Nations, the financial administration of the League, and the bodies dealing with various League of Nations constitutional questions. Then we will start with the second topic of the official documents, which are the League's activities related to peace treaty. So here we will have the mandate system, the minorities, we have the case of the city of Danzig and the Saar territory. After, we will go to the third topic, which covers the efforts of the League in maintaining international peace and security. That's why we will have disarmament, collective security, political disputes, and various political issues. And then we will have the last part, which covered the functional activities of the League. So here you will have economic, social, humanitarian, cultural, legal issues. And we will find, for instance, the economic and financial organization or the intellectual cooperation organization. Now, let's start with an example. And let's say that we want to consult the minutes of the Assembly. And we are going to go in this tree view. And let's say that we want to consult the 19th session of the Assembly of the League. If we continue to click, we will go to the last level. Okay, so we go to the plenary meetings, to the minutes. You can choose in English or in French. And here we will take the example of the minutes in English. Then, if you go below on the document, you will see a thumbnail. And if you want to consult the document, you just have to click on the thumbnail. A copyright notice will appear. We will probably change soon that name for terms of use, but it's the same. You just have to agree this copyright notice, and then the PDF will start to download. I have it here, and that's the records of the 19th Assembly of the League of Nations. That took place in Geneva in September 1938. So you can see that the document is more than 150 pages long, so you have a lot of information. There are the minutes in English, and there is another PDF for the minute in French. In these records, you will find the decisions taken and the actions taken by the Assembly, but also you will find the text of the speeches addressed at the Assembly. If we search an example in this document, let's go directly to the page 80, where we can find the speech of the Egyptian representative at that time, who was Abdel Fattah Yella Pasha. And here it's a good example of a verbatim record what Christina has explained, because you can see that the speech is transcribed in the first person. If I go a little further, I will find an example for you. Here we are, for instance, I do not wish to revert to what was said, or in conclusion, I can only once more express the hope. So here, really, what we have is the total speech of the delegate. Each word has been transcribed, and it's really the word used by the delegate. Now that we have seen this example of minutes, let's go back to the platform and let's see another type of document performing a search. Okay, because the first example, we go through the tree view. Now, let's say you want to use keywords inside this collection of official documents. What you have to do is only to select the level where you want to perform the search, here official documents. Then you can go below and you will find this image carousel. You can click on show all, sorry, and here you will be performing the search inside the official documents collection. Then you just have to click on advanced search options and add the keywords you are interested in. Let's say that we want to find reports linked or in relation with Egypt in the official documents, and to have more precise answers, we are going to search only in the title. When we perform the search, we will find only 4 results, which is a very precise results. We can then consult one of the results. Let's take the first one. And we go to the description of the document. And if you want to open it, you just have to click on the thumbnail, ask and say agree, and then you will download the document. So here in this example, it's a kind of report in opium and other dangerous drugs. That was a topic addressed by the League of Nations, and each country were sending information each year, annual report. And it was, of course, this report a way to monitor and regulate and limit the global trade in narcotics at a time where drug trafficking was becoming a transnational issue. So here you will have all the reports sent by Egypt. It's a document of more than 200 pages. I will stop here the demonstration of that platform. If you want to go back to the first page, you just have to click on the home button. I just want to mention that please feel free to contact us at any time. At the bottom of each page, you will find this Ask an Archivist link. If you click on it, you will go to this form and you can send us any question, any doubt. Also, we have a chat service that is open regularly. And at the top, on the quick links, you will find the help section. Don't hesitate to use it. You will have a tutorial on how to use this platform and also indication on how to perform search. Finally, if you're interested, please sign it to be part of our research community and especially to receive the UN Archives Geneva newsletter. Thank you. Nathalie, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hermine, for demoing that. We hope it was very useful for you to be able to do your research on the archives. And now we're going to demo with Christina the digital library, which is now on the UN documentation side. So Christina, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So we also have a database where you can search for UN materials. So in particular for the UN documents and UN publication. And it is called the digital library. So this database is maintained by the 2 main UN libraries, the one in New York, which is closer to where the main organs are located and where they issue their documents and publications, and the one in Geneva, which means that we also participate to this database by describing and inputting the full text of the documents that are normally produced by the organs here in Geneva. In this database, you will only find UN materials, but you will not only find bibliographic descriptions, as if in a library catalog, you will also have additional collections where you can look for other relevant information. You will find the information, for example, how resolutions have been voted. You can find information about the speeches that the member states have made in front of the main organs, and also supplementary materials, for example, the collection of the UN maps or the UN oral history, which is a collection of interviews with UN staff members that held important positions with the organization. So it's a sort of institutional memory of the organization. Now we can have a little bit closer look at the contents of the digital library. So, and the digital library, if you can see on the next slide, will allow you to search for UN documents and publication. It's the best way to find also access to their full text. However, with some caveats. The UN official documents are born digital since 1993 onwards, which means that from 1946 to 92, 93, not everything is available in digital format yet. There are some categories of documents that have been fully scanned and they are available in full text. And these are, for example, the resolutions of the main organs, the Security Council documents, and the meeting records and reports of the General Assembly. But there may be, since the UN has many organs and has been in existence, as you've seen, for 80 years, there may be older documents that are not yet available in digital format. However, these documents, there is a project of continuous digitization that is going on between Geneva and New York. So documents are being scanned and made available on an ad hoc basis. So if you don't find the full text of something that you are looking for, you can contact us, as we will give you at the end our address, and we will try to find it for you, make it digital, and upload it in the digital library. So now, without further ado, we'll try to see how the digital library works. So here is the digital library, and here it's his address. You can see that there is also here a help that will give you instruction how to use it, but we'll try to do something very simple. First of all, you see that also in the digital library, there are different kinds of collections. There is one that allows you to search by type of resource. Here is the documents and publication, and these are a mention of the other resources that are available. And then there are the UN bodies. So if you know that a document is from a specific body, you can enter and search directly under the documents of that body. But right now, we are just going to do a simple search on multilateralism, which is the topic of today's talk, and see what kind of results we find. You can find, we see we have 1,054 records. It's a lot. And here on the left, we have what we call the facets, which allow you to pinpoint your research and get better, more precise results. And one type of limitation that you can enter in your research is by type of resource. For example, by document or publication, meeting records, speeches, reports, publication only. But also, for example, you can search for resolutions and decisions. And this should limit your results. For example, here we find this first resolution establishing the International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. And when you see here on the right, there are multiple files, which means that this document is available online in digital format. You can click on the title to examine the record as it has been described by specialized information specialists of the UN, the indexer. So here you have a little bit of the title, you have the indication of the organ that adopted this resolution, which session it was, and the year. And then if you go down, here you have the access and the possibility of downloading the full text in the 6 official languages. If you go further down, you find other interesting details. First of all, you find the symbol. We already said that the symbol is the main entry point to each official document, and here you have it. Then you have the title, again, the possibility of accessing the various linguistic versions. And then you have information when this resolution was adopted, the 12th of December 2018. Normally, when you catalog, you make a description for a book, you have information only about the document. But in the digital library, you see that the indexers have added other information that is not in the document itself. For example, here you can see how this resolution has been voted. We know that it has been voted, has been adopted with 144 votes in favor, 2 against, and 0 abstentions, including also which plenary meeting it was adopted. They also, and this is very useful for you, you see that the indexer has put a link to the draft of this resolution, to the project of this resolution. So if you click here, you will see that this resolution has been sponsored by a number of states, which include also Egypt here. And if you go back, you will even find here the meeting record, the indication, the link to the documents contains the verbatim record of the meeting when this resolution was adopted. And here you have, for example, the information about the agenda. This document pertains to the item 15 on the agenda of the 73rd session of the General Assembly, which was devoted to the culture of peace. So if you click here, you will find other documents related to this point of the agenda. And finally, here you find the subjects. So this is why the system retrieved these documents, because we have it here in the subject and we have the word multilateralism in the title. So this is a certain relevance. Then if you want to quick access the full text, here you can see that there are all the linguistic versions that you can access just with a quick with a click. So you see in this record all the references to the various documents that we mentioned today, to the various kinds of official documents that we mentioned today. So it's a very useful tool, the digital library. However, the UN always strives to make these official documents more accessible to the delegates, the diplomats, and the public. And they have recently started a sort of speed-off from the digital library, which is called the Member States on the Record. So what is the Member States of the Record? It's another database whose purpose is to give very quick information about the interaction of a member state with the organization. And here you will find highlighted a very easily information for each member state. We can have a look at Egypt, for example. You can see that Egypt is a founding member of the United Nations. This is when it ratified the charter, the 22nd of October 45. There is information when it was represented in the Economic and Social Council, in the Human Rights Council, in the Security Council. And also here you can find, for example, very quick links to the general debate statements the representative of Egypt have made. You can search for speeches, and you can also search very easily for the draft resolutions that Egypt has sponsored. And if we click here, we see that behind the member states on the record, there is the digital library. So a search has been conducted, has been preset in the digital library to find all the draft resolution that Egypt has introduced and sponsored, starting from the most recent ones. So, for example, you can see in the General Assembly what they have proposed. And you can also filter, for example, by year, 2024. And when you open here, you find the full text, and you also find the link to the final resolution with its symbol. And here you can see how the resolution has been adopted, how it has been voted. And if you want to know how the resolution is, who has voted for or against, you can use another part of the digital library, which is the voting data part. So here you can put the symbol of the resolution, and normally here you can see all the detail of the recorded vote. So what we wanted to tell you that these databases are actually quite useful. And there is the digital library, but there are also other databases that are more specific, and they can give you like an easier access to all this, the history of multilateralism by your country.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Armin, for the demos. We know we're almost out of time. So what we'll do is we'll make sure to share these slides with you. On the next page, we do have a list of different resources. It includes the platforms we mentioned. It includes, of course, UN member states on the record, which we hope would be specifically useful with regard to the decisions made by Egypt, as well as our podcast, as well as research guides that we have, and other historical series. So we'll make sure to share this with Shireen to give to you, but we want to leave some time now for any of your questions. So please, if you have any, don't hesitate to raise your hand or come to the front of the room to ask your questions, and we'd be glad to answer them. Anyone there has a question? No?
All good so far.
All good so far? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Maybe what we can do though is make sure that we give you the details to ask a librarian or an archivist. We realized that was a lot of content today, but if you have any specific questions about resources, documents that you come along in your research as diplomats, don't hesitate then to contact us at a future time or write us an email as well once we give you our details. Nivert, anything you'd like to add as well?
Thank you.
No.
I can hear some people discussing, so I think that somebody has a question.
Someone has a question.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much for your time today, for the session delivered. And I believe it covered very big part out of our concerns or the questions we had before. So we are so grateful for this session and for the time and for investing the effort and putting this much effort in getting this presentation, facilitating and making it easy for us to navigate the website of the library. And we are looking forward to seeing you in Geneva, not virtual. Thank you
Please,
so
we would
much
love
for
to
coming.
see you. If you come to Geneva, please let us know. We thank you for your time, and we hope it was useful. We'll share the
you.
recording and the resources with you. I think we can end there. Shukran jazilan. Yom Saeed. Ma salama.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, مع السلامة.
Bye bye.